Cool. Hey, everybody. Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness, leading the movement for movement and bringing you a special edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, bring on more of our Autism Fitness certified pros, particularly our expert pros, and discuss different intricacies and variables and things that show up in reality in our training sessions with the autism and neurodivergent population on a regular basis because we have, of course, all of these practices and we have these standards and we have the exercises, we have our behavior support, but what is it like when it is actually applicable to a particular session? So I have with me our certified pro and expert candidate, Cecilia Anaya. So, hey, how you doing, Cecilia?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
I didn't mess up your last name, did I?
No, I forgot to change it on the settings.
Uh,
So
I'll try to I'll try
Gonzalez
to edit
is
it
my,
out.
yeah, no, you got it
Yeah,
right.
but I think that there is such a helpful component of having other certified pros on the Tuesday training to talk about different aspects of their programming because even though there are a lot of similarities and there are best practices to follow, everything is going to have a little bit of nuance. There are going to be details that are going to be really important, the things that we call the small but big things as well. And you had brought up the other day in one of our conversations, one of your athletes in particular, and we can get into this because I think the more we can get from the general into the specific, it's helpful for those who are already certified pros and those who are interested in the programming and how it actually works. Because it's very easy to say that we have a best practices approach that has been validated. But it's another thing to actually put it into real world application when you are working with an athlete or a group of athletes as well, because we have this toolbox of different strategies and exercises. So I wanted to speak with you and other certified pros as well to talk about how you're actually implementing it, what it looks like, what it sounds like, and then from there talk about some of the objectives, some of the goals with particular athletes, and then some of the takeaways that other certified pros or future certified pros could use as well. So, how's that for a start?
That sounds good to me. Yeah, it's a lot to cover and I'm ready to cover it. So,
So
yeah.
before we get into it, could you give a brief synopsis of your autism fitness journey thus far? From becoming a certified pro to starting to implement programs, and then into your expert pro program as well.
Yeah, no, it started like it's been a long journey. So like probably like 5 years. I
Mm,
didn't find you until I think what 2023, I
mm,
believe, or the end of 2023. I had found you online and so I work as a registered behavior technician. So that's how I got into this field and just noticed there was just a lot of to address with communication, behavior, but there was no real for fitness. There's OT and PT, but there's no real for like you see like for the gross motor, So that just really spoke to me. Then I had found your page and it just really spoke, like your mission statement really spoke to me. Like
mm,
leading the movement through movement. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So I hopped on, did the pro certification, and it just really set out like what I was looking for. So before that, I had studied to be a certified personal trainer, and
mm,
it kind of gave me the groundwork, but it didn't for neurotypical, but
yeah.
it didn't have it for what I was looking for, the neurodivergent and the ASD population, how to program it, how to coach it, because I see a lot of coaches in neurotypical that are like a lot of talking,
Mm,
and how to break it down and how to simplify it and how to meet where that athlete is,
mm,
and just in terms of is this their first training session? Is this their first introduction to fitness? They've never seen a fitness. How um, non-preferred is it going to be?
mm,
Just something novel to them. And so And I went from zero athletes now to six
Mm,
now. So it's been a really cool journey. I went from just talking about it on Instagram and
mm,
then just people reaching out to me. And I've been really loving it so far. So I get to teach fitness as a life skill and I get to teach confidence. So
mm,
that's really what I loved about your program is that I got to hone in on my coaching skills and I get to see the athletes' confidence shine through exercises. So that's really what it gets me. So
mm.
yeah.
Yeah. And with six athletes now also, I'd say you are on that cusp or really at that point where you notice, oh, there are a lot of similarities, and then there are some stark and very significant and important differences between athletes. Because with the autism spectrum and with neurodiversity being not just a spectrum or a gradient scale, but physical, adaptive, and cognitive abilities are all over the place. And so with that, when we talk about individualization of a program, it's true that we want to cater or select for some of the best practices with each one of our athletes. However, it's not that everybody needs something so radically different that it needs to be so ridiculously and specifically programmed just for them. From the exercise component, but also from the positive behavior support strategies and the coaching and communication also, which I think is really important because the meme version of, oh, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, and this is true. But if we had to program entirely differently for every single athlete, then there would be no such thing as best practices because you wouldn't have that structure. Like at some point, you need to say, this is going to work for most people in some way. And with that, I wanted to guide the conversation into what we were talking about the other day with one of your athletes in particular, because we were talking about programming, which the structure of programs should, all things being equal, be the easiest part of the whole process. Like, okay, we have our fundamental areas of performance. We have our warm up, we have power, and then we have strength, where we spend the majority of our programming time. And you had asked me a really good question. We were speaking about one of your athletes in particular, and for her, how you were setting up the order of exercises, and also taking into account two big things. Number one, the importance of the exercise selection and getting into her session the most important exercises for her and in general, and then her level of autonomy and ownership over the program. So could you speak a little bit and just set up the scenario, what we were talking about the other day, as your athlete and how you were structuring that session?
Yeah, so I've noticed for her, like doing the ones that are perceived hard for her or that just require a lot of motor planning, the squats that just requires a lot of muscles and just requires just that coaching. So we had the hard ones first, though. We had the squats, medicine ball, push those. And she's also very particular. Once it's kind of set, it's very set. So very hard to change it. So what I noticed towards the end, I had implemented not too long ago another exercise, which was the resistance band lat pull down.
Mhm.
So most sessions, she's been doing really, really well with that exercise. Like she took ownership. What the other part I did love to see was her little clap she did after she did it. Just but the last few sessions, there was a breakdown. There was just too much of that, wanted that eccentric, nice slow extension. Well, she was going a little too fast. So when I tried to provide coaching to her, she very much advocated. She was like, no, no, coach, I don't want your help. Like,
Mhm.
I want to do it myself. No, thank you. And also, um, very like short language. So it was just there was reduced communication coming through as well.
Yeah.
And that's when I noticed I was like, she's getting fatigued. Of course she is.
Mhm.
She's gone through like five other exercises. Before she would rest every exercise. Now she's just like, Coach, I'm ready to go. So when I noticed that, I was like, you know what? I need to. I was like, Eric, what are your thoughts about just switching it up, putting it at the beginning because she's getting fatigued and she's like not taking any, doesn't want the feedback. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, and of course I gave her the space and I did tell her, I was like, hey, I'm just gonna help cut, like help one and then you can do the rest. So, but yeah, it kind of led to that conversation about when an athlete is like not like engaging in maladaptive behaviors, but
Yeah.
showing dysregulation or their withdrawal, like from an adaptive standpoint, we're losing that engagement and the
Yeah.
motivation to um, complete that exercise or
Yeah.
take feedback. So,
Yeah. And there's a lot going on there too. Yeah, first, if we start from the perspective of the pack profile and always coming back to that landing pad, like physically, she's performing the exercise, but it definitely requires some modification. And that modification would be that physical guidance and that support because she's doing the band pull down too fast. And if she's doing it too quickly, she doesn't get the eccentric control, so she's not getting everything that she can out of the exercise. And that is objectively true. However, then we look at the adaptive and we have the autonomy. She wants to do it independently, which is great. At the same time, there's a level of rigidity there around her not wanting to be coached, which as far as the independence is great, but that rigidity is also around, well, how can we collaborate with the athlete or find a way to also support her to do the exercise as good as possible? Because it would be easy. It would be really easy to stop there and say, well, she wants to do it on her own, so just let her do it and whatever. But then we're doing a disservice to the outcome of the exercise. And occasionally in the short term, we choose that because we want the athlete to feel safe and comfortable and respected. At the same time, that can't really be the long-term practice because then she's going to get diminished returns or very limited returns out of the band row. And the third thing, and the kind of the other factor here is the cognitive. She knows the exercise, however, from either a kinesthetic awareness or even an understanding of what the exercise is supposed to do, which is a really kind of high level understanding or appreciation of the exercise. Does she understand that it's this slow control or relatively slow controlled movement when the exercise is being done correctly? Can she think that through and then can she feel it like, oh, the difference between controlling the stretch on the band versus just doing it as quickly as possible so you can be done with it. So we're really playing with both very straightforward, basic premises, and then some really in-depth, we've got to think this through and kind of figure it out, all during the session and then post-session in the analysis as well. And then that's what we're talking about also. So what was your resolution during the session and then in the subsequent session that we were talking about?
so just what I've learned is just pick your moments, you know what I mean? So she was doing it as best as she could. She was following the routine and like she told me so I want to collaborate like with my athlete. So if she's telling me she wants to do it by herself, that is the second to last exercise. You do you. So,
Yeah.
but I did at the time. So the after when I talked to her BCABA, I was like, what do you think about trying to move that up and collaborating with my athlete about moving it up at the beginning and just having a conversation with her? Because also to keep into consideration her age and of where and giving her a choice, like going back to that choice, Eric. I always go back to respecting the athlete and providing that choice of they want to do that, because it is her schedule, So I was like, hey, I'm noticing it's been really hard for you to take, listen to take feedback from coach about
Mhm.
this exercise and I know you do really well. So what do you think about moving it up to either number one or number two? And also at the time, also she earns minutes for
Yeah.
participating in my exercise. So I had asked her, I was like, hey, if you're flexible with this, what do you think? 4 or 5 minutes
Yeah.
for being flexible for it. And she was like, for number two. And I'm like, okay, cool, awesome. Like, talk to me about your minutes. And she was like, 5. I'm like, all right. And then for a second, she realized she was like, wait a minute, no, I want it at the end. And I
Yeah.
was like, you can do that. You can do that. You can totally do that. I was like, but we can earn the minutes a different way. And I could see she was trying to she was processing it. And she did choose to make it number two on the exercise. So,
Mhm.
and I was really proud of her because, just changing of the schedule, I don't know what's going through her head, just
Sure.
knowing. So I also want to take in consideration and be respectful of like that change is hard,
Mhm.
like we as like neurotypical, we can adjust to changes,
Yeah.
like we can self-cope inside, but for her, like that's a big adjustment for
Yeah.
her to change on her schedule. So
Yeah.
because it went from the second to last to the second out of 6 exercises.
Yeah.
So
And even more nuanced in there also, when you gave her the opportunity for choice, all of a sudden she seemed to have that realization, oh, I have options here. And so if I have options, I might be more amenable to what you suggested first, knowing that I can change it, if I need to. So it has to be second to last. Yeah, if you want it second to last, sure, let's try it first or second, but you can always bring it back here. Oh, well, if I still have that option, then it's avoiding that have to or creating an unworkable situation in which the coach is saying, well, you have to do this and you have to do it at this point, and the athlete is pushing back because now they feel that sense of like coercion, or they don't have the latitude to pick one versus the other. And sometimes that's all you need. And I've found that also. If you give an athlete if you know what's optimal, like it's going to be optimal for her from a physical perspective because you see she's fatiguing because the lat pull down is now the fifth exercise and she's already done a lot of
yeah,
volume. You know, from a programming perspective, all of the things being taken out of the equation, that what will best serve her physically is doing the lat pull down earlier in the session. And then from her perspective, this is a change. She has a rigidity around that change. So no, we're keeping it here. And then you open up this opportunity for collaboration of, hey, you can keep it here, but maybe we try it second. And initially it's this, hard stop, no. And then it's, oh, well, if I have the options here, then maybe we'll try it your way.
yeah. No, I definitely like to avoid the that have to or feel like it is a have to. I was like, it is your
Yeah.
choice. Your choice. Your exercise is like coach is here to help you. So yeah.
Yeah.
But I was really proud of her also too. She challenged herself that same day. I always give her a choice of reps from 8 to 10,
Mhm.
goes and does 10 reps instead of 8 reps.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the takeaways there are when the athlete feels trust and they feel comfort in the situation, then from a coaching and a programming perspective, there's a lot more that they can accomplish and a lot more that we empower both them and ourselves to expect more out of that athlete. You have to set up the environment and you have to set up the coaching situation in a way that is conducive to that. Because when we get into and as you know, there's a big part of the curriculum. When we get into the have tos, we are setting ourselves up for failure and we're pretty much setting up the athlete for a bad time because
Yeah.
then it becomes you never want to make exercise a have to thing, like a hardline contingency. it's important and we want to incorporate it, but that initial drive to, oh no, we have to get this done and we have to get this done, we need to take expectation management into account. And if we do that, then it does become a collaborative process, not just in name, but in actuality. Like that's an extraordinary conversation that you had with your athlete about, high level programming stuff. Like, where are we putting this strength exercise? Because it's evident to you that because she is fatigued by the time she's getting to it, the performance declines as it would with anybody else. But for her, it's not as easy as, oh yeah, let's just switch it out and do it, first or second. So, you are definitely commended on utilizing all of those that skill set, but using those practices, as intended. So it's not just having all of these different practices and saying, "Oh, I'm just going to use this, I'm just going to use that," but understanding it from the perspective of the athlete and really putting on that empathetic coaching practice as well.
No, thank you for that. No, I really like I know we were talking about like the big takeaways. Like the big takeaway I took from the expert is like honing in on that empathetic coaching and just meeting where the athlete is, and just trying to take in where like how are they taking in the environment? Because this particular athlete has exhibited so much flexibility since I've started with her.
Mhm.
Like it is just amazing because like we work out from her apartment complex in a community center. It's like community area. So there's times where we have to change like the location, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so also have to take that in consideration with her as well. And just like change is hard, just
Yeah.
hearing from the outside noises. Like I hear it and I'm like hearing this and I'm like, okay, this is loud,
Mhm.
but she may not have the words or just say like, hey, coach, this is loud for me, so we also have to be respectful of like what are they taking in? Or there's any noise sensitivity, or was there something that happened prior that day? So I'm always want to be mindful of that when I'm going into a training session with them. So yeah,
Yeah, and different environment. So, you walk into
yeah,
a new gym, where's all the stuff? Where's the dumbbells? Where are the
yeah,
machines? Which machine?
yeah,
For anybody, for
yeah.
neurotypical populations, it's daunting. Even if you've, training for decades and you walk into a new gym and you're scoping it out and figuring, okay, where is everything? What does this machine feel like? There's so much that can be an instant overwhelm too.
Oh yeah,
But I think this has been a really helpful and insightful conversation, particularly with some things that I think are pertinent to many of our certified pros and certainly anybody who's implementing fitness or physical education programs with the autism population. Really getting down to understanding the athlete's perspective and how to take a collaborative approach. And ultimately, I think the one big takeaway here from my perspective is that the collaborative approach is not about stepping back and not having the goal of achieving everything that we want to for the athlete. It's actually the opposite. It's wanting to achieve more and involving them in the process so that we can include all of the exercises that they need right now so we can get enough volume and intensity and appropriate exercise techniques so that they get the training effect. So the empathetic coaching thing is not a choice between effective coaching and, fluff. It's really a gateway towards the most effective outcomes possible. I see that as the big takeaway from everything that you've described with your athlete.
yeah. No, I would have to agree. Like the biggest thing like that has helped me just to help like any of my athletes to optimize in their programming is just empathetic coaching, and just meeting where they're at and then being able to scale exercise back or progress it just where they're at, and utilizing the pack profile. Like, where are they at? Like, is it a P and A type of situation, or, from the physical, is there a breakdown? Or, an adaptive, like they just don't understand this exercise, is it an A and C, So yeah. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely was really proud of myself and of my athletes when that collaboration happened. And just to see her and herself, see like she can challenge herself and do more, to add more volume to her exercise and to help her notice, like, yeah, that exercise was kind of hard for you towards the end. Like, let's try and move it up and see if that helps in our session.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah. So Coach
definitely.
Cece is in the San
Yes.
Jose area, and where can everybody find you on social?
On Instagram. So I was not ready for this, but Coach Cece or Cece Anaya on Instagram. And yeah, I'm in the Bay Area, or you can reach me on Coach Cece at gmail.com. So
Hmm. And you do
yeah.
make some of the most awesome token boards I've ever seen. Talking about individualization, you do make very individualized token boards
Ah, thank you.
as
Yes.
as well. So reach out if you want customized token boards, definitely reach out. If you are ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, you can head over to autismfitness.com, download the syllabus, register, and begin your coursework immediately. Coach Cece, thank you so much for joining me on a Tuesday training and going through a really extraordinary um, discussion about your athlete, and I appreciate everything that you're doing, both for your athletes and for the Autism Fitness Certification program. And we'll be back with more interviews with more coaches on Autism Fitness Tuesday training. So thank you for watching.
Okay.
And of
Thank you,
course,
Eric.
as always, if this has been of interest to you, if you're getting something out of this, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And if there's another topic that you'd like us to cover in a future edition, leave that in the comments also. We'd love to cover it. Thanks for watching.